Hi, CJ here for another video of passionate sharing about recovery tools, lessons, and real-life experiences from my mental health journey. I am not a medical or mental health professional, just here today to share more helpful information about my journey. Just a reminder, if you've not yet created your personal safety plan, check it out through the links below and above and learn more about staying safe, because emotional triggers or darkness of depression can set in at any time and potentially during this video. Okay, let's get started. And remember, you're not alone. Hi, CJ here. I'm going to talk about some grounding techniques that worked for me and still do today. Grounding for me means that I'm doing something physically or visually to help me gain control and keep control when I start to be triggered from fight or flight type symptoms, thoughts, and emotions. I've heard this term be used in so many different ways, so just understand that I may have a different meaning than you've heard in the past, and so my scope will be limited to the technique I'm going to share with you today. I'll be sharing others in the future as well. But in the last video, I discussed mindfulness, and grounding is an example of how mindfulness can be applied in a very specific intent way. So when I use the word triggering, that means something is in the environment or in your thoughts that has engaged the natural instincts that occur in our system when fight or flight issues begin. Symptoms for me means that I become dizzy, nauseated, my ears start ringing, and often my vision becomes blurry, and my headache definitely spikes. I feel as though I can't walk another step or move safely in any way. It's almost like my body and my brain are no longer connected together. My thoughts and emotions typically are around anxiety, shock, and fear. But this is much different than just feeling anxiety. I don't know how to really describe it other than the fact that I no longer feel safe. Gain control or keep control to me means that I'm in a place where I can move again, or I can continue with the activity I started, that I feel somewhat safe in my current environment. Unfortunately, the physical issues that manifested typically would linger for some time until I later learned how to also integrate emotions I was feeling. The grounding technique I want to share is about becoming mindful as possible in the present by focusing on whatever is physically touching, that you're making contact with your body, and what you can see in the environment around you. The technique that I use to prevent escalation, so once I've escalated and I've been fully triggered, I call stop it. Stop it right now. Do the grounding to stop that triggering. And the technique there is very similar to the one where I use the avoid it. I'm going to be going into a stimulating environment that may cause me to go into fight or flight, so I want to avoid it. So let's move on to stop it, what that really means, and this will be the first one we go through. Again, similar for avoid it. The moment grounding is needed, something triggered the pure fight or flight, and all these emotions and body sensations are starting up. The goal is to tell the fight or flight, that natural instinct running in your body that is now raging, to tell it everything is okay. Let the natural human instinct built to protect us know I'm okay. I'm not in danger and I'm safe. When you've realized, or a close contact with you helps you realize, that you're in a triggering event, you need to ask yourself, what is here that I can focus on? This is mindfulness. This is a mindfulness-like technique, so please understand that you're not going to get it right every time and that it takes practice, but the goal is just to let your brain know that you're safe. So the first question that you're going to ask yourself is, what am I physically in contact with? You're going to focus on that in as much detail as possible. Like an elbow on a desk, like the fact that I'm seated in this chair. And then when you realize what you're physically in touch with, then you're going to take a deep breath and you're going to answer that question in your mind or out loud if it's feasible. And you're going to also state that you are safe in this current environment with what you are physically in contact with. So let me do an example of that. I am sitting in my office chair. I am sitting here in my office chair. I can feel my bottom touching the cushion. I can feel the small of my back against the back of the chair. I can feel my legs against the seat. I can feel my arms touching the armrest. I know that I'm safe while I'm sitting here in this chair. Take a deep breath many times, beginning, end. It doesn't matter where you do it, but make sure you take a deep breath. And as you do that deep breath, go through those same, I'm sitting in this chair, just sinking into the cushion and really come into contact with that physical that you are grounded to. So once you tell your body you're safe, it actually helps those triggering instincts go, I'm safe, and then let all those chemicals and hormones go back to where they belong. Okay, so the second question you need to ask yourself is, what can I see in my environment? Again, on this one, you're going to focus on it while you're doing a little mindfulness, but I'm asking that you only do one item at a time. And then you'll add another item and add another item as you need to really calm that panic, that anxiety, the trigger down. So again, you'll take a deep breath and you're going to state that you're safe. Okay, here's an example. I am next to my desk in the office, sitting in my chair. I feel safe knowing I'm sitting in my chair and next to my desk in my office. I feel safe as I feel the chair. I can feel my bottom sinking in, and I know I'm next to my desk. I'm here in my office. I am safe. As you see, you change it up. You just go with whatever feels right while you're trying to come out of this triggering event. Now, with the second question, what can I see? You keep adding things into it as you need to. I am here in my office, sitting in my chair. I can see my computer. I'm sitting next to my desk. I'm here in my office with my computer right there, my chair. I can feel myself sitting in the chair, my arms touching the chair right next to my desk here in my office. I am safe. Now, this technique I just walked you through, I really recommend that you bring up with your closest contact, those people that will be around you when you might get triggered. You may not realize you're in a trauma triggering moment, and they might. And with that, they can actually aid in helping with the physical and the visual. Now, in this example of this picture, someone could come right behind and give a loving hug and say, honey, just feel me hugging you. you're safe, I'm right here with you. And that can help them realize they've been triggered and that you're safe. Another example where I triggered often was when I'd hear a siren when we were in the car. And my wife would just say, honey, I'm driving us to an appointment. That was a siren. You're sitting in the passenger seat. Feel the seat and know you're safe. I've got it. I'm driving. Don't worry about a thing. And so I would put myself into just focusing on the seat I was sitting in and look at the dashboard. I would take myself out of looking outside of the car so I could feel more safe. And if needed, if I stayed in triggering issues too bad, the dizziness was getting too much, then she would pull over and then I could really focus on getting grounded to my seat and the dashboard. That's another great example that worked in those moments when we both knew I was triggered. She would help me. Now, avoid it. This is the technique that I used in my past primarily to protect myself from triggering into those fight or flights. I would be going into an environment where it might cause triggering, like going by the hospital and we knew I might have a siren, or going to the grocery store, which is where I did this often, and I'll use that example. Starting into an environment, reminding yourself is safe can help a great deal. And then if it spikes and you become triggered to where you're very dizzy and feel like you can't move, then you're in a better position to go to the stop it technique. In my PTSD journey, I became successful in mostly eliminating the need to use this technique once I did some focused exposure therapy. I will be discussing exposure therapy in future videos. So hey, make sure and hit subscribe and hit the bell to be notified when additional tools and learnings are published. Well, let's walk through an example of avoid it. It's basically the same concept. So I'm going to walk through an example of what it was for me to go into the grocery store in the past. As a reminder, if you haven't listened to my story, I no longer need to use these techniques. I now have my freedom and don't become triggered near as easily anymore. And if I do, I can immediately go into a mindfulness technique and take myself out of it. So anyway, so it was in the past, but first thing I would do is make sure I would restrict my vision field. And this was taught to me through vestibular therapy. Well, before I would even actually leave the home, but for sure before I ever left the car, I would put on these type of glasses that would block my visual field. Notice the paint here, painted the sides. It's my blinders, I called it. Always wore a hat, and this really brings down your visual field. And then, especially in a grocery store, I recommend earplugs. And once I have all of these in place, then I would leave the car and start to walk in to the grocery store, holding on to my wife's arm or her shoulder, so that I could ground to her as I was walking into the store. Well, I'm here now again without all my hat and everything. That's a strange way to have to look at you. I lived that way for several years. I choose not to do that much anymore. I don't need those anymore. But if you do, oh my God, just putting a hat on, it's amazing what it does to your visual field. And earplugs. Nobody's going to notice you have earplugs on. It just takes a lot of the sensory away that your brain has to process. So the key to all that is to bring down what your brain has to do, because when we're going to go into the grocery store, there's a lot of stimulation which can create triggering. So to get into the store safely, we would walk with me holding onto her arm or maybe her shoulder. And then she would take me over to the carts, and then I would ground on the cart. That was my ground. And then she would walk in front of the cart, and visually I would follow her all the way. I never took my eyes off of her and my hands on the cart. So I knew I was safe. I was holding on to my cart, and I was following my wife. She will keep me safe, the cart will keep me safe, and I can't get hurt. Now, the reason I need to do this is the hypersensitivity that goes on in your mind with PTSD. I can't explain it. It's that triangle that I've talked about in my previous videos. Just that you're just watching everything. Your mind is. You're not really doing that, but your mind is. So that's what we're trying to calm down by holding on to the cart and taking out the visual field and focusing visually just on her in front of me. I would not be able to attempt to go to a grocery store by myself. I was not successful in that at all. I would, if I ended up not being able to follow her, all of a sudden, and it was the weirdest thing, but all of a sudden, I just could not walk. I could not make one foot move in front of the other. It was just my brain shut. It didn't know how to walk anymore. And when that happens, then you go to stop it. I stopped completely, held on to the cart, and just really focused on, I'm in this grocery store, I'm holding on to the cart, my wife is right there, I'm safe. And I would have to do that. And typically, she would then lead me out of the store, and I would go back to the car after that happened. If I couldn't get my symptoms and my body to be able to feel that I was safe again. Some of you are probably asking, why did you put yourself through that? Why did you even go to the store? Well, through vestibular therapy, I learned that it's really important to just keep trying and let your brain know it's safe. Keep trying, and every time is going to be just a little step forward and a little step forward, and it'll get easier and it'll get easier. And it did. So sometimes I wouldn't even make it to the vegetable section, but that was okay. But I got more successful, like I said, over time, little by little by little. And then I would start to realize I can't let go of the cart at all. I caught myself once or twice trying to help out and grab apples or grab some lettuce. But I let go of the cart, and then I would get in trouble shortly after that. It is amazing. Grounding really works. Holding on to that cart and just being that conditioning that I had helped my brain with say it was safe. It took us the longest time to figure out why I got in so much trouble at the checkout stands. Well, think about the checkout stand. What are you going to do? You're going to unload your groceries. So of course I'm going to help unload groceries. Well, I let go of the cart. Bad idea. And not only that, I was putting the groceries onto a moving belt. Okay, it kind of makes sense. So I learned that I just had to stay with the cart, had to let my wife just take care of all the groceries, and just know that I was here, I'm practicing, I'm telling my brain and trying to break the need of the brain to be so hypersensitive and be happy with that, even though I couldn't help. So in summary, grounding is an incredible way to slow down or stop actually any type of anxiety. You don't need to be in a full trigger event where you can't move. It's a type of mindfulness by incorporating physical and visual or sounds and smells, but incorporating your environment and reminding yourself that you're safe, bringing you to the present. So again, a type of mindfulness skill to bring you mindful to where you are at the time. You do not need to be suffering from PTSD or trauma to use this technique. Try it out next time that you become startled or panicked. And it's amazing what you can feel once you've learned how to feel all your emotions. You're feeling all these things going on in your body. And when you use grounding, how quickly it will all go away. And remember, there is no right or wrong way to try this. Just focus on what you're physically in contact with. Shopping cart, the chair, a railing somewhere, the wall. Just find something that you can be physically in contact with in your environment and focus on that. And all these feelings that you have with PTSD and traumas and anxieties, just remember, you're not alone.